I always thought the dark web was probably 90% exaggeration and 10% idiots trying to sell cursed clown dolls to each other. That Friday night, I sat in my bedroom with the lights off except for the glow of my monitor, laughing to myself while scrolling through bizarre listings. Taxidermia rats dressed as priests, haunted VHS tapes, someone selling a potato shaped like a human ear for $400. I remember calling my mother into the room just to show her one listing titled, "Do not open this box alone." She stood in the doorway with her coffee mug and gave me a slight expression on her face, the same she used to give me since childhood. "Phil," she said, "one day you're going to accidentally buy a demon." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink on my keyboard. At that moment, everything still felt harmless. Then I found the mystery box listing. The page itself was strangely empty compared to the others. Black background, no comments, no reviews, no username except a string of random symbols. The title simply read, "A box tailored specifically for you." Underneath it was one sentence that made me smirk at first. "We know you better than you know yourself." I thought it was hilarious. Some marketing tactic meant to scare lonely internet addicts at 3 in the morning. The price wasn't even high. $40 in cryptocurrency. I remember joking out loud, "For $40, I better get at least a haunted toaster." I clicked purchase without thinking twice. The page immediately disappeared afterwards, replaced by a blank error screen. That should have bothered me more than it did. For the next few days, I treated the whole thing like a joke. I told my friends about it. I even started making ridiculous guesses about what would arrive. Maybe fake blood. Maybe creepy masks. Maybe one of those stupid cursed dolls from eBay. My mother overheard me talking about it during dinner and rolled her eyes. "If someone mails us a severed goat head," she warned, "you're cleaning the driveway." We both laughed. That's what makes everything afterward feel so wrong now. I could still hear us laughing in the kitchen. I can still remember how safe the house felt back then. The package arrived on Tuesday afternoon during heavy rain. I found it sitting on the front porch without any shipped label. No return address. Nothing except my name written across the top in black marker. Not written, handwritten. The cardboard looked damp and old, almost soft around the edges. Something about the sight of it made my stomach tighten, though I couldn't explain why. My mother was upstairs vacuuming while I carried the box into the dining room. I actually hesitated before opening it. Not because I was scared exactly, but because suddenly the whole thing didn't feel funny anymore. Inside the box was my missing television remote. I froze immediately, not because the remote itself mattered, but because I spent 2 weeks searching for it. I had torn apart couch cushions, checked under furniture, even accused my mother of accidentally throwing it away. Yet, there it was, sitting nearly in the center of the box like a display item. Underneath it was my old wristwatch I had lost sometime during the winter. Then a set of house keys I thought had vanished at work months ago. Each object was carefully arranged in rows, almost lovingly placed there. My amusement disappeared so fast it felt like cold water running down my back. Then I noticed the photographs underneath everything else. There were maybe 20 of them. Real printed photographs. The first showed me asleep in my bed, blankets tangled around my legs. Another showed my mother asleep on the couch downstairs. And another had been taken from outside the kitchen window while we ate dinner. My mouth went dry as I flipped through them faster and faster. In one photo, I was sitting exactly where I sat now, using my computer late at night. The angle came from inside the hallway, inside the house. I remember standing up so quickly my chair slammed backward onto the floor. Upstairs, The vacuum cleaner suddenly shut off. Silence filled the house. Then my mother called downstairs casually. "Everything okay?" I couldn't answer right away because I was staring at the final photograph. It was a picture of me holding the mystery box on the front porch, only minutes earlier. The police arrived within 20 minutes, but even while explaining everything, I had already felt something awful setting into my chest. The officers were calm, professional, almost too calm. One of them examined the photographs while the other searched the doors and windows for signs of forced entry. There weren't any. Every lock was intact, every window secure. That somehow made things worse. My mother sat at the kitchen table, gripping her coffee mug with trembling hands, while I explained how the missing objects had ended up inside the box. The officer exchanged looks I couldn't fully read. Skepticism mixed with concern. One officer finally asked the question that made my skin crawl. "Are you absolutely certain someone outside the house took these items?" Outside the house. That wording stayed with me all night. The officers searched every room before leaving. Closets, basement, garage, attic. Nothing. They told us it was likely a targeted stalking situation and advised us to install cameras immediately. One officer suggested someone may have copied a key months earlier. Another suggested the photographs could have been taken through the window using zoom lenses. They tried to make everything sound logical, manageable. But logic started falling apart around midnight when my mother realized something else was missing. Her silver jewelry box. Not valuable, just sentimental. She swore it had been inside her dresser 2 nights earlier. We searched the entire house again, turning on every light until the place looked painfully bright. We never found it. That's when the noise started. Very soft at first. Tiny sound that seemed almost accidental. A floorboard creaking upstairs. The faint rattle of something shifting in the hallway. Once I heard what sounded like a slow exhale directly outside my bedroom door. Every time I checked, nothing was there. My mother tried pretending everything was normal, but I noticed she kept glancing towards the dark corners of the house like she expected someone to step out. Around 2 a.m, she finally whispered, "What if they're still here?" Neither of us slept after that. The following day became a blur of paranoia. I started noticing small details that suddenly felt sinister. The basement light was on even though nobody remembered turning it on. A kitchen chair had moved slightly away from the table. The back door was unlocked once, though I was positive I had locked it earlier. Every little thing became suspicious. Every sound made my heart slam against my ribs. I found myself checking my reflection in mirrors, glancing behind shower curtains, staring down dark hallways before entering rooms. The house no longer felt like home. It felt occupied, observed. That evening, I decided to go through the photographs again. At first, I was too terrified to study them carefully. But now, I forced myself to examine every detail. Most were straightforward shots of us sleeping or moving through the house. But one photograph made my blood turn to ice. It showed my mother asleep on the couch with the television on in the background. Standing near the staircase behind her was a blurry shape. Tall, dark, almost blending into the shadows. I thought it might be a trick of lightning until I found another photo taken from a slightly different angle. The figure was closer this time, watching her, watching both of us. I felt physically sick. My hands started shaking so badly I dropped the picture onto the floor. One slid beneath the couch. When I bent down to retrieve it, I noticed something taped underneath the coffee table. A small folded note. My stomach tightened instantly as I peeled it free. There were only 4 handwritten words inside. Our visit. Police returned immediately after we found the note. This time, their tone had changed completely. No more polite theories. No more calm explanations. The officers photographed everything, dusted surface for fingerprints, and searched the house again from top to bottom. One officer even crawled through the attic insulation with a flashlight while the other checked the crawled space beneath the basement stairs. Still nothing. It felt impossible. Whoever had done this had moved through our house like a ghost. No footprints, no broken locks, no witness. Just evidence that someone had been standing beside us while we slept. My mother could barely stay inside the house anymore. She jumped at every sound. At one point, she burst into tears because the ice maker suddenly activated in the freezer behind her. That night, we stayed awake together in the living room with every light turned on and the television playing softly just to feel the silence. I remember staring at the dark hallway leading deeper into the house, feeling absolutely certain someone was standing there beyond the light where I couldn't see them. The fear became psychological torture. Every object in the house suddenly carried doubt. Had that drawer always been slightly open? Was that picture frame tilted before? Had someone touched our things while watching us panic? The alarm company arrived the next morning. By noon, cameras had been installed throughout the house. Front door, back door, hallways, living room, basement stairs, motion sensors on every entrance, window alarms. The technician tried joking around to lighten the mood, but even he seemed unsettled after hearing why we wanted the system installed so urgently. I kept imagining the intruder somewhere nearby watching the workers through the binoculars, amused that we were trying to lock him out after he'd already been inside whenever he wanted. That thought followed me everywhere. For the first time in days, that night almost felt peaceful. The cameras were active. The alarm system glowed beside the front door. My mother finally managed to sleep upstairs while I stayed awake downstairs watching the camera feeds on my laptop. Every room appeared in cold black and white night vision. Empty hallways, empty kitchen, empty living room. Hours passed quickly. Around 3 a.m, exhaustion started pulling at my eyes. I remember thinking maybe it was finally over. Maybe whoever had done this got what they wanted. Maybe the cameras scared them away. Then the motion detector activated in the hallway upstairs. My pulse exploded instantly. The screen switched automatically to the hallway camera. At first, I saw nothing except static-filled darkness stretching towards the bedrooms. Then movement. A figure slowly stepping backwards into the shadows at the far end of the hall. Not walking away, facing the camera the entire time while retreating. My breath stopped completely. The image quality distorted badly, but I could still make out the outline of a hooded person standing inside her house, watching the camera. Watching me watch them. The alarm suddenly screamed through the house. I ran upstairs so fast I nearly fell. My mother woke screaming as light flashes read throughout the hallway. But when we reached the second floor, nobody was there. Every bedroom empty. Every window locked. Police arrived within minutes and searched the entire property again. Nothing. No footprints outside. No signs of forced entry. Just empty rooms and terrified silence. One of the officers reviewed the footage repeatedly, but couldn't explain how the figure vanished. Before leaving near sunrise, he quietly admitted something that terrified me more than anything else. The motion sensors never detected anyone entering the house, only moving inside it. The firelight made their faces glow orange against the dark woods, and from where I watched behind the trees, They look painfully alive. There were 6 of them. Loud, young, careless. The kind of people who believe the forest belongs to them because they bought cheap tents and brought coolers full of beer. Early summer had just begun, and the woods around the lake smelled of pine needles, wet dirt, and smoke from their campfire drifting through the night air. I've been following them since sunset, watching their truck bounce down the gravel road while hidden between the trees. They never once looked behind them. Nobody ever does. I stayed far enough away that they couldn't hear my footsteps, but close enough to hear their laughter. That was the part I hated most. The laughing. It always started cheerful and loud, echoing through the woods like they were untouchable. By midnight, the laughing always changed. The girl with the blonde braid noticed me first. Not me exactly, just movement. She stopped talking in the middle of a sentence while sitting near the fire and stared towards the tree line. I froze behind an old pine trunk, barely breathing. The others kept drinking, arguing about ghost stories and music, but she kept staring into the darkness where I stood. I could see fear growing slowly inside her, like a crack spreading through the glass. "Did you guys hear that?" she whispered. The others laughed. One of the boys grabbed a flashlight and pointed towards the woods. The beam slid across branches and rocks and nearly touched my face before I crouched lower into the bushes. My fingers tightened around the hunting knife in my hand. The steel was cold and slick from the damp night air. "There's nobody out there," he said. But there was. I followed them for another hour after they crawled into their tents. The forest became quieter then. No more laughter, just a crackling fire and insects humming in the darkness. I circled their campsite slowly, letting my boots drag across leaves every now and then. Just enough sound, just enough to keep them uncertain. Inside one tent, someone whispered, "I swear someone's out there." Good. Fear makes people stupid. The blonde girl came out first to use the woods alone. They always split up eventually. She walked with a flashlight trembling in her hand, muttering nervously to herself while stepping over roots of branches. And I followed silently behind her, matching every step. When she finally heard me, she spun around too late. The flashlight beam hit my chest for one horrible second. Then I dove the knife into her stomach. The sound she made wasn't a scream at first. It was a wet gasp. Her body folded against me while the flashlight dropped into the dirt, spinning wildly. I could smell the blood instantly, hot and metallic. She clawed my jacket, trying to breathe, but I pushed the blade deeper and twisted slowly. That's when she screamed. The campsite exploded with chaos. Voices shouted in panic while I let her collapse into the mud. She crawled only a few inches before the blood pouring from her stomach turned black in the darkness. By the time the others reached her with the flashlight, I was already back in the woods watching. The screams became beautiful after that. One of the boys tried acting brave. They always do. He grabbed a hatchet from their camping gear and marched into the trees, shouting treats into the darkness, while the others cried near the tents. I could hear the fear in his voice pretending to be courage. I let him walk deeper into the woods before attacking. He swung the hatchet wildly when I rushed him from behind a tree, but panic made him clumsy. I slammed him against a trunk hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. then dragged the knife across his throat. Blood sprayed hot across my hands. He dropped the hatchet and fell to his knees, choking violently while grabbing at the root of his neck. The flashlight beside him illuminated everything red. He tried to crawl away, gargling through the blood flooding his mouth, but I kicked him into his back and stabbed him again and again until he stopped moving. Back at the campsite, the others were trying to leave. Smart, but not fast enough. Their truck wouldn't start because I'd already cut the wires hours earlier while they were swung in the lake before sunset. One girl was sobbing hysterically in the passenger seat while another pounded the dashboard screaming for help. The remaining 2 boys ran towards the road on foot, using their phone flashlight to guide them through the woods. I hunted them separately. The heavy one didn't make it far. I caught him near the creek where the mud slowed him down. He begged me not to hurt him while slipping on wet rocks. I still remember the sound his skull made when I smashed it against a stone beside the water. A thick crackling noise, like stepping on ice. The second boy escaped longer than the others. He ran hard, I'll give him that. Branches tore at his face while he sprinted through the darkness, screaming for his friends. But the woods at night belong to the creatures like me, not people like him. I stayed behind him the entire time, letting him hear my footstep getting closer. By the time I tackled him, he was too exhausted to fight. We rolled down a hill together through the dead leaves and dirt. He punched me once in the mouth before I buried the knife into his ribs. I felt the blade scrap bone. He screamed so loudly birds exploded from nearby trees. Then suddenly, gunshots. 2 sharp blasts echoed through the forest. For the first time that night, I hesitated. The final 2 survivors had found another campsite nearby. An older couple with a hunting rifle. I could hear shouting now, flashlight cutting through the woods in every direction. The wounded boy beneath me used that moment to shove me off him. He staggered downhill, bleeding heavily, while I disappeared back into the darkness between the trees. I watched from afar away as the survivor reached the road with the older couple helping them. One girl was covered in blood that wasn't hers. The boy kept collapsing while clutching his side. Only 2 survived. Barely. Police searched the forest for 3 days afterwards. Dogs, helicopters, floodlights. They found the bodies. They found the blood. But they never found me. Because even now, years later, I still return to that forest every early summer when the campfires began glowing beside the lake again. I still stand between the trees watching strangers laugh like they're safe. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind carries their voice through the woods, I follow them.